iceberg images. I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you are 100% aware of what this is, so I won't elaborate what this is. Now, I was actually taking an interest on these icebergs to the point where I want to make one, basically a Blaze Blue Cross Guilty Gear iceberg, but there is this one iceberg that actually caught my attention, mostly because of the franchise it's attached to. Yeah, you noticed how much I've been in a huge Klonoa mood, though that's probably because I really miss this series. Though, even if we're not gonna get any future game anytime soon, I could at least supply some content relating to this series. So I say maybe an iceberg image video about this series would actually be pretty interesting. Like many iceberg videos, I'm gonna have this meter be the representation of how much I know about the certain subject, basically the Klonoa health meter, or hearts, whatever you want to call it. The more hearts there are, I know what I'm talking about exactly. But the less hearts there are, the more unknown, at least to me, the subject gets. Now, with that out of the way, ah yes, the never-ending subject of what animal Klonoa is. Now there is a general consent that he is a hybrid of a cat and a rabbit, a cabbit if you will. However, when Namco was asked about this in an interview, they said that Klonoa was mostly portrayed as a fantasy creature. However, Namco Cross Capcom, he was referred to as a feline. So, most likely a cat with floppy ears. Probably. Klonoa Dream Traveler of Noctis Soul is an official webcomic by Shifty Look, a small part of Namco Bandai that were making these obscure animations and webcomics like this one. Though now they are defunct, and sadly, this webcomic didn't really go that far. In fact, it only lasted for 3 issues, though thankfully, there is a fan continuation, though I'll get to that a little bit later. Now, this is a Klonoa manga that was running from 2002 through 2003, which is more comedic based. Really, there's nothing really beyond that, but I will say that Klonoa does go Ultra Instinct here, so there's that. As far as I know, this means that Klonoa Door to Phantomile is available on vinyl records, though that's all I really know about this. Though there is something later down in the iceberg that is connected to this. Yeah, there was supposed to be a movie that I think was announced in 2015. And then it got cancelled in January 2020, or was it 2019? I can't remember. But regardless, it got cancelled, and I think that's really sad. I was actually looking forward to this movie. I'm not sure if it was gonna be good or not, but hey, more Klonoa content. I thought that would have been really cool, but again, cancelled. This is most likely referring to the sad truth about the franchise, and that is that it kinda fell into obscurity. Yeah, I wish I wasn't really reminded of that. This is referring to these sweet looking Klonoa figures that are on screen right now. I honestly wish I had, I'm not gonna lie. Though if you want to know more about these and probably other Klonoa merchandise, I highly recommend checking Gaming Chili Hedgehog's video on Klonoa merchandise. I think it's a very interesting watch and I think you should check it out. Yeah, kind of a weird fact, but Klonoa loves burgers, but he hates carrots. Yeah, it's kind of a weird fact, but as you can see, it was clearly shown on Empire of Dreams. This is referring to the Klonoa mascot costume that was used in the Tokyo Game Show 2001, and also in the Klonoa Beach Volleyball booth, which I'm sure was in the same event anyways. But yeah, Klonoa had a mascot costume alongside with Mr. Driller. Not too long ago, Namco has trademarked Klonoa Encore, which we're not really sure what exactly this means or is. Judging by the name, it could be a collection game, or it could be a completely new project involving the series, or this is just a trademark just to keep the rights to the character and series. Who knows? This is referring to an old web hub for official Klonoa stuff. Really, that's about it with this one. Namco High is another thing that Shifty worked on. I'm not exactly sure whether to describe it as a visual novel or not. I guess you could count it as one. But regardless, Lolo does make an appearance here. And she is a completely different character from the regular version. This version of Lolo is more of a gothic, introvert kind of character. At least that's how I would have described her. And even if this version of Lolo is very different from the regular version, I do still find this version to be quite amusing, or at least to me that is. This is another Klonoa manga, though a rather rare one. This one was released to coincide with Door to Phantom Isle, and yeah, I can't really find any translations of this one, nor do I know if it's like some sort of adaptation or whatnot. Though regardless, I do hope I do find this translated one of these days. Yeah, Klonoa has made cameos in a lot of Namco Bandai games. This includes the Tales of series, Soul Calibur 5, the Ridge Racer series, Family Stadium series, World Kicks, Alpine Racer 3, Smash, Court 3, MotoGP, and even in Tekken 7 as a picture with Li Qiaolong in the customization option. So yes, Klonoa made a cameo in a fighting game where you could play as Geese Howard from Fatal Fury / King of Fighters fighting against Negan from The Walking Dead.
Oh my goodness!
Though I'm not really sure if Namco Cross Capcom counts, since he's just more of a full-fledged playable character there alongside with Guns, with Jenga and Joka as boss characters. Though if he does count as a cameo character there, would that mean that every other of the crossover characters in that game count as cameos? Though regardless, it's still really awesome to see Klonoa in a crossover like this, and I feel like it would have been best if I talked about this specific appearance in a much later video. This is referring to a bootleg Klonoa game. Yeah, this exists. There's a bootleg Klonoa game. I don't know why I'm so astonished by this existing, but there you go. Hideo Yoshizawa actually encouraged Namco Bandai to make a publication of the Klonoa Chronicles data collection, which is this collection of unpublished, unreleased material created during development throughout the whole Klonoa series, and I'm gonna be honest, I would love to see this. I think that would have been awesome. Just the amount of stuff that we probably would have got, like unused ideas, unused character designs, or hell, just unused characters in general. I think this would have been amazing to see. The Namco Cross Capcom Anthology manga is an anthology manga centered around Namco Cross Capcom. Of course. However, what does this got to do with Klonoa? Well, if you remembered, Klonoa and Guns are in Namco Cross Capcom, so there's a chapter dedicated to them. Actually, there are 2 chapters that are dedicated to them from what I remembered. I could be wrong, but yeah. Yeah, this is referring to Leorina saying damn it in Klonoa 2, and Klonoa swearing here and there throughout the series. Though, there is actually a lot more swearing in the series than I remembered. Hell, back in Namco Cross Capcom, yeah, I'm bringing that up a lot. I think the Klonoa characters, mostly Jenga and Gunts, were the characters that swore the most in that game. I could be wrong, but that's what I remembered. Now this is referring to the E3 demo from 1997 of Klonoa. Now really the only difference I noticed was the hub, though if you know any more differences you could point them out in the comments. If you remember the vinyl records part of the iceberg earlier, this is referring to the artwork that was used there. It is a digital recreation of the Door to Phantomile artwork of Klonoa. Now just the fact that they went out of their way to basically digitally remaster this artwork is kinda interesting. I'm not sure if this really means anything, but I do think it's rather interesting to say the least. This is referring to the behind-the-scenes stories by the developers during the development of Klonoa Heroes, and I think this is actually rather very interesting. Really, there's nothing really too much to talk about here, but yeah, I'm actually glad this stuff actually exists. A GameCube port for Klonoa 2 Lunatia's Veil was announced, but it was quietly cancelled. My guess is probably because Sony had heavy involvement with Klonoa 2, though I could be completely wrong with that one. Though if it was released for the GameCube, I'm not sure if it would have had more sales, but I feel like it probably would have helped, at least. At least that's what I think. Yeah, the Klonoa advertisements has always been pretty weird to say the least. And this one is no exception, of course. I'm not sure how this would have garnered more sales, but considering the state of the franchise now, you could safely say it didn't work out. This is referring to the background music in the Klonoa 2 advertisement in Japan. And yeah, this one is actually pretty notorious to some fans for being very repetitive. Though I did heard that this song in Japan was actually very popular. Though I felt like maybe they should have played a different section of the song maybe? And considering how short the advertisement was, I guess it didn't really help matters. I would have found Hupo's absence in Dream Champ Tournament that odd if it took place after Door to Phantomile and Lunatia's Veil, since Lolo also appears in the game. However, in the beginning of the game, it heavily implies that it takes place right after Empire of Dreams, which Hupo appears in, and this takes place before Door to Phantomile. This is why the handheld games' canon has been questioned for a while. Though when it comes to this kind of thing, you could just write it off and just say that Empire Dreams takes place before Door to Phantomile, while Dream Champ Tournament takes place after Lunatia's Veil. At least, that's my opinion. In Popka's ending in Klonoa Beach Volleyball, it is actually briefly shown how Lolo actually discovered Popka. In a cold winter's night, Lolo actually found Popka on lonely and cold, so she gave him the iconic scarf that Popka wears throughout the whole series. And I think that's rather cool that we were actually shown this. Though the fact that it was shown in a beach volleyball game of all things is still rather strange. This is actually referring to the first design that Klonoa ever had, named Shady, which was described as this shadow-like character. However, it was rejected thanks to its lack of color. Now, I can't find any concept art for Shady, however, I heard that the King of Sorrow was also a rejected design for Klonoa. So, maybe they reused that design for the King of Sorrow? This is most likely referring to some debug cart of Klonoa Dream Champ Tournament. Though honestly I can't really find much information on this, so really I'm stumped with this. This is referring to the mobile phone port of Klonoa Dorta Phantom Isle. Yeah, it exists, I guess. I think it's kinda weird that it exists, but nevertheless, it exists. This is talking about the concept art of the moves' evolutionary cycle, showing how they were like sea creatures, and then they evolved into land creatures. Not sure what the time gap between them is, but it is some rather strange yet intriguing concept art, though it's super hard to find. Sega Gaga, a rather bizarre yet intriguing game for the Sega Dreamcast, which kind of serves as a love letter towards the fans of Sega and sort of a swan song by Sega before they went third party. Now, what does this got to do with Klonoa, you may ask? Well, in this game, there are several parodies of existing games from rival companies by Sega, one of these games being Klonoa Dorta Phantom Isle. And yeah, this is mostly a jab against the Sony PlayStation. Sort of like I guess like a parody of Klonoa, where they kind of made his name, like, as a pun to the coming cold. Yeah, there's really nothing to this really, it's just a rather humorous parody. This weird piece of artwork of an evil Klonoa was actually done as a joke, I guess sorta to make fun of the trope of the evil doppelganger type of character, which was very prevalent at the time, and probably even to this day. Though, when it comes to the menacing looking Hupo in the left, I'll get into that a little bit later. However, this design would be actually kinda reused for the Dream Traveler Noctis Soul comic. This is referring to the Phantomilian and Lunatian alphabets. Now, from what I see, the alphabets seem to be different, however, the language itself I'm not sure if it's the same or not, because Klonoa seems to be speaking the same language in between Lunatia's Veil and Dorta Phantom Isle. However, I do think it is a cool way of world building and all that stuff. This is referring to some unused animations, or probably some missing animations from the Klonoa Wii remake. And yeah, they probably were removed late in development, or maybe early in development, I'm not really sure. I sadly cannot find these animations, though yeah, that's really all I got for this one. Now, from what I heard, originally Hupo was going to betray Klonoa in the game, sorta like pull a Mark/Magler on him. However, I do think this was an idea early on development, though maybe they didn't went through with this idea because they probably think it would have made the ending a lot more depressing than what it actually is. At least that's what I think. Now this one's a weird one. So, Pac-Man World 2, the GBA version, actually had a beta cart, which was labeled Klonoa. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this could mean. It probably means that a Klonoa game was used and overwritten into Pac-Man World 2. Now, I'm not sure if this was a pre-existing Klonoa game, most likely maybe Empire Dreams, or this was a cancelled Klonoa game that never seen the light of day, which is highly unlikely. However, when it comes to this kind of mystery, we may never know. Radius Senkai, or as it's called in America, Chronicle of the Radius War, is another game that Hideo Yoshizawa also made. And the parallels between this game and Klonoa are kind of uncanny. First of all, we have two characters named Gaudius and Lafis, which were reused in Klonoa Dorta Phantom Isle. Although with different spellings, they still have the same pronunciations, and also in the beginning of the game, Princess Lafis crashes a plane near our protagonist who is sleeping on the woods. Similar to Klonoa. Back in 2002, there was actually a character popularity contest for Klonoa. Now, remnants of this popularity contest is actually hard to find, though it exists thanks to some screenshots. And this also has some very rare artwork of the King of Sorrow, and, well, of course Klonoa won. What did you expect? In Klonoa Door to Phantom Island Vision 4 Stage 2, you actually get to see some fossils. Now the creatures that these fossils were are still in question, though I do think they kinda resemble the flying fish creatures that Pamela and Carl are. Though again, that's just my theory, I could be completely off the mark. Though there is also these octo-moos in the background, frozen. And these are most likely what the moos were in the prehistoric age. But again, I could be wrong. Now this is a very rare piece of Klonoa merchandise, and that is the Klonoa Garage Kit figure for the Wonder Festival 2000. And yeah, this is a pretty cool kit figure of the Door to Phantom Isle version of Klonoa. I gotta be honest, I wish I had this, but considering that it's super rare, it is also super expensive. Wagon Paradise, a game developed by Namco for the Super Nintendo, actually has a lot of similarities to Klonoa. From having the same composer, Aroko Amora, sorry if I mispronounced that, to possibly even having the same art crew. Now I'm not sure if that one's true, though it wouldn't really surprise me for how similar the art kinda looks, and even has a similar HUD menu, or life menu, whatever you want to call it. However, one thing that strikes as very odd is that it also has a similar spiker enemy, if not the same spiker enemy. I know this is like the same company, so this could obviously be just a tongue-in-cheek reference, though it does kinda make me think. This was a very early name that they used for Klonoa in the early storyboards, and yeah, this is some very interesting stuff considering that we don't actually really know that much about the early storyboards, but judging from what I know, the ending probably would have been a lot more sadder. Speaking of which, this is probably referring to the early storyboards for Klonoa the Breeze, as it was called at the time. Now, these storyboards were sadly never shown. However, Wonderswan did actually posted a video kinda showing his little adaptation of what the ending storyboard would have looked like. And judging by what I saw, it kinda seemed like Hupo was gonna be the one to disappear instead of Klonoa. There was some very early concept art of Hupo who looked completely different from before. And he is indeed attached to a leash, which is also attached to Klonoa's collar. Now, it seemed like the original idea was that Hupo was going to eat an enemy, which then causes the enemy to inflate, and then he would smack or throw the opponent. And it seems like this would have been kind of similar to what we got, but with different execution, of course. Though when it comes to Hupo himself, yeah, he looks very different, and my theory is that this was probably what Hupo was gonna look when he was gonna be like the surprise villain, though that's just my theory. Amenti, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, was actually the very first idea they had for Klonoa before Klonoa. And as you could tell from this weird robot looking guy's design, yeah, it seemed like it was gonna be a completely different game early on. However, I'll admit, I actually do like this robot looking guy's design. And they could, like, I wouldn't mind if they make it into some separate IP or whatnot, but I doubt that's ever gonna happen. But regardless, I am still happy to have Klonoa. Gaudius was actually one of the 5 spirits. These 5 spirits being the tree spirit, the water spirit, the wind spirit, the light spirit, and the dark spirit who Gaudius was. Now at the time he actually wasn't a force of evil, however he was the representation of nightmares and darkness. which the people of Phantomile did not like, so they shunned him. However, they did worship the Light Spirit, who Gaudius grew very jealous of, and thanks to the abandonment of the people of Phantomile, his hatred for those people just grew and grew until one day he decides to attack the Spirit of Light, which resulted in him being sealed away for 3,000 years. And honestly, I just feel bad for Gaudius, really. Like, I'm sure he's kind of born that way, so I guess it can't really be helped, but funny enough though, the King of Sorrow in the sequel actually has a similar backstory. However, I could at least say that the King of Sorrow had a happy ending. Kind of. Yeah, there's a Klonoa themed candy dispenser in Japan. That is all. So you know that comedic Klonoa manga I was talking about way back? Yeah, that's what it's referencing. Breezegale actually had some history of stone masonry and mining. And from what I know, Baloo is probably one of the only villagers who carried those skills of mining and masonry. Though again, I could be wrong with that. Though when it comes to the resources itself, that's also rather kind of a mystery. The app was a downloadable service that had Namco themed cell phone skins and digital knickknacks and whatnot, and one of those franchises happened to be Klonoa. However, this service has been long discontinued. The crest and Hupana are indeed very similar, both in terms of visual design, where Hupana kind of looks more like a distorted and warped version of the crest, and even backstory wise, since they're both kingdoms that were sealed away by other kingdoms because of what they represent, or because of some past tragedy. And even the name, Hupana, resembles Hupo, which Hupo is the prince of the crest. So I feel like this was done deliberately and intentionally. In the final level of Klonoa 2 Lunatia's Veil, there is actually some eerie laughter that you could hear in the background. Now, what this laughter could really mean is rather unknown, however it does resemble the laughter of the priestesses in Lolo's backstory. Whether that was done intentionally or as a reuse of assets, we're not entirely sure. Though if this was done deliberately, this could represent Lolo remembering those memories of her getting picked on and bullied. And since she made it this far to the adventure, she's willing to not give up, even remembering those traumatic moments. Though if this was used as a reuse of assets, then maybe it could represent Klonoa himself remembering the happy memories he had with Hupo, but only remembering that those memories were nothing but fakes. Though if that was the case, then I wonder why not just reuse the laughter from the opening cinematic of Klonoa 1, where it has Hupo and Klonoa laughing together. Or maybe they just don't have access to those audio files. I don't know. Yes, it is true that they both have very similar themes, especially when it comes to accepting sadness. However, this is probably one hell of a coincidence because, let's be honest, I doubt Pixar even knows the existence of Klonoa. Right? Yup, you could find some quotes from the movie Full Metal Jacket within The King of Sorrow. Now, I'm not sure if this was done as a little joke or Easter egg or whatnot, though I always found this very odd. Back in Door to Phantomile, Klonoa was actually going to have a rival character, who was this wandering seafarer type of character who exuded confidence and experience and had this cool sword. And in contrast of Klonoa's floppy ears, he was also going to have pointy ears, which, ironically, or maybe this was intentionally enough, Klonoa was going to have similar pointy ears in the Wii remake, but again, that design was scrapped because, well, nobody liked that redesign. Though, funny enough, there was actually more concept art, this time of a female rival. Not sure if this was just a gender-bent design or a partner character, though there is also early designs of a female heroine design, which I'm not sure if this was going to be Klonoa himself or herself in this case, or a partner character. Though when it comes to these rival designs and even the heroine design, I could actually see them kinda reusing these, or maybe they kinda reused some of the ideas with guns, only without a sword, instead it's a gun. And with the female heroine design, I could see some resemblance to Lolo, but that's just me. In Klonoa Empire Dreams in the world map, you could actually see some text, and seemingly what the text is saying is probably talking about Terragin, or Terragin, whatever it's pronounced, which is a security generator program, which is odd since this has absolutely nothing to do with the game whatsoever. This is actually referring to an original Klonoa song that was made for this game in particular, Takono Tatsujin 3. No idea how many times I had to re-record this one particular voice clip just to see if I pronounce this name. And even then, I'm not sure I've even pronounced it right. And that's the iceberg. Though even though this iceberg is over, there are some extra entries I do want to include here. None in any particular order though. The music that you're hearing right now is actually the background music that plays in Hupana, the Ruins of Sorrow. And this piece of music has always fascinated me with the use of leitmotifs not just from Lunatia's Veil, but also in the first game, Door to Phantomile, but only in a more distorted and sort of in a sorrowful manner. And I feel like this is somewhat representation of Klonoa remembering the events of not just Lunatia's Veil, but also in the first game. The first leitmotif that plays is actually Cursed Leorina's theme, but backwards, probably representing the face turn of Leorina. The other leitmotifs that it plays is Lolo's theme and Bajaji's theme. And when it comes to the first game's leitmotif, it plays the Windmill Song, For the Time We've Spent, and the Song of Rebirth, which was saved for last, which I'm sure was actually intentional, since I'm sure they wanted to save Klonoa's saddest moment for last, the moment where he got separated from his supposed best friend, which I'm sure the name of the area is named after, and vice versa, though I already explained that earlier. And this is Klonoa realizing that history is bound to repeat itself in the end with the journey with Lolo, where he has to part ways with her thanks to his nature as a dream traveler. Though that's what I think is going on. This was kind of a shocker to me, but Garland was actually going to first appear in Klonoa 2 Lunatia's Veil. His role was most likely going to be tied to Volk City and the factories since he is a mad scientist, and there was some piece of dialogue that kind of alluded to that. However, he ended up getting scrapped, though not all is lost with Garland since he actually was reused for Dream Champ Tournament, the volleyball game, and Klonoa Heroes, where he actually played a prominent role in those three games. The Moonlight Museum and the Museum of Memories are honestly very similar, not just for the background music, but also because of the concept of immortalizing memories within artwork or in mirrors. And there's even a marionette doll in the Museum of Memories that actually resembles the little girl from Moonlight Museum. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this was done for lore reasons or as a cheeky little reference, though it does make me think. Klonoa Dream Crusader is a fan-made sequel to Klonoa Dream Traveler of Noctis Soul. And honestly, I plan to make a separate video about this, but I'll just mention it briefly here. It is a wonderful fan-made project. I highly recommend checking this out, though I do recommend checking out the Dream Traveler Noctis Soul first before checking it out, but regardless, I highly recommend checking it out afterwards because I think it is wonderful. Klonoa Fan Disc 1, 2, and 3 are fan albums made by the fans for the fans. Now, for the longest time, I actually never knew if they were official or not, but they're most likely fan-made. And I honestly highly recommend checking them out. My personal favorite is the third one. Now I will explain this in a more later date in full detail. However, what this means is pretty much that Namco x Capcom is essentially an alternate version of Klonoa Heroes' the story, at least in the perspective of the Klonoa characters, since it does have similar story beats playing out. However, some of it is either in different order or just altered. Again, I'll explain this in a more later date, but that's what it essentially means. This is sort of a joke entry. This is based on Dark Side of the Moon, the album by Pink Floyd, fitting in with movies like Wizard of Oz and Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, yes, I'm being serious here, and I decided to do it with video game cutscenes one of these days. One in particular, Klonoa 2, Lunatia's Veil, and I don't know what really compelled me to do this. Maybe it's because of a certain video that was doing a similar project to this, or maybe because I felt like Lunatia's Veil had similar themes to Dark Side of the Moon, but just only a little bit. And I'll admit, when I actually did this, the results were kinda surprising for how fitting some of the songs are. Now don't get me wrong, it wasn't perfect, but when it fits, it really fits. Now I actually recommend doing this yourself and see what results you get. Maybe it fits even more, or maybe not, I don't know. Strapping guys, it's time for meta story time, because I've saved this one for last because this is potentially gotta be the longest one. Now if you don't know who Artsy Omni is, he is actually this incredibly talented artist who is probably the most known for his incredible Rayman leak that actually got the attention of Ubisoft. Not even joking there, that actually happened. However, at that time, little to my knowledge, I actually have seen his artwork before. And it also fooled me to thinking two characters in particular were in Smash Bros. Back in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, he made a fake leak for Bomberman, which completely fooled me at the time, and it had me thinking that Bomberman was actually going to be a character for Brawl, but was scrapped at the last minute, and just saying that just makes me feel stupid. However, what does this got to do with our favorite cat-rabbit thing? Well, that was the next leak that I fell for. He actually made a fake leak for Klonoa for Smash 4, and this one also fooled me. Yeah, I think what gave it away was like some text within that leak, and yeah, I feel like an idiot saying this out loud also. However, mad respect to Artsy Omni, even if he teased me with two particular characters that I always wanted to see in Smash, even if he doesn't know my existence. But you know what? Mad respect to him. He is honestly a very talented artist, and he actually used this ability to make like Smashified versions of characters in his own channel. I honestly highly recommend checking him out. He is honestly amazing, and really that's all I gotta say about this one. And I think that is everything. Honestly, this was actually fun to do, and I'm glad that I did this. I actually learned a lot about this series while making this. And I also want to give a special thanks to the Klonoa Mega Chat Discord server for helping me out with this also. I wouldn't have done it without them. Again, I learned so much from this project, from the lore to development history to all that stuff. Again, my serious thanks to the people in there. I don't think this video would have even been possible without them. And honestly, I'm just glad to make a video talking about all this Klonoa lore and all that stuff, because I don't think there's any video that talks about the specific lore of the series. And who knows, maybe in the future, it could either be me or someone else. I don't know, but I honestly hope to see more. Maybe. I also want to give a special thanks to the Klonoa archives on Twitter. Honestly, it just made my job for this video a lot more easier. And I also just want to give a special thanks to it and many other Klonoa archive posts from Twitter. It is just a godsend. Let's just say that. It was just a godsend. But I'm sure it's about time that we put this iceberg to a close. Now, if I made any mistakes, or if you have any extra entries that you had in mind, put it down in the comments below. And with that being said, I'll see you guys